It's Liverpool versus Chelsea. Huge game in England, an iconic game between the Reds and the Blues. We've had so many games between these teams that have given us classics, like the Champions League semi final, which turned out to be amazing, and a phantom goal. We've had many games. It's still in the Champions League. I remember a game when Rafael Benitez called Didier Drogba a diver and he scored. Didier Drogba scored against Liverpool at Stamford Bridge to knock Liverpool out of the Champions League. So we've had so many games. We've had brilliant moments, brilliant goals. I remember a goal by Mohamed Salah a few years ago. He scored a beautiful goal from outside the box to get revenge against his old team, Chelsea. And so I think this is going to be an entertaining game again. I think for the first time in a long time, both teams are going to be, in good good positions to play against each other, right? So that's what we'll be talking about today. Before we get into the video, this is We Talk Football. Please remember, follow us everywhere. Follow us on YouTube, subscribe and like our content, comment and share. It helps us out a lot. Follow us on Instagram as well at We Talk Football 24 and on Facebook at We Talk Football. So as I said earlier, today we're going to be looking at Chelsea versus Liverpool. Or actually, it's the other way around, Liverpool versus Chelsea, because the game is at Anfield. So I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be a fun game to watch. Lots of brilliant players. So let's get into it. So I'm looking forward to this one. Liverpool versus Chelsea at Anfield. I think it's going to be a very, very great game. Very nice game. I think this is going to be a game that a lot of people are going to look forward to for the first time between these two teams. This particular fixture, right? I think it's going to be a game that a lot of people will look forward to for the first time in a few years now, simply because Chelsea haven't been that good. And that's what I meant, before, that this is probably the first time where both teams really look good. I mean, Liverpool have been looking good. Liverpool have been a good team, a great team actually, for the past few years, but not the case for Chelsea. But I think this season, coming into this fixture, both teams can say that they've had a good start to the season. And there's been a lot of changes from both clubs. And so I think those have come with some positives, a lot of positives, right? Which I'll talk about a bit later. But I think both teams come into this fixture with really good form, and they've done well so far. So let's look at the records this season. Let's look at the table for both teams. Liverpool have played 7 games, won 6. They haven't drawn a game, but they have lost 1. They lost to Nottingham Forest at Anfield. So they have lost at Anfield. And I don't think it's going to be like, for Chelsea, they shouldn't feel like it's an impossible task. You know how Chelsea played against Manchester City in the first game of the season, and I think it was one of the easiest wins for Manchester City. If you watch the game, Man City they didn't play badly, they didn't play great, but they played good, and they just won the game very, very easily. It wasn't difficult for Man City to go to Stamford Bridge and get the 3 points, score 2 goals, easy, workmanlike victory, So I think this is going to be a little bit more of a challenge for Liverpool, because I think Chelsea have done better. And so now, considering the fact that, I was talking about Liverpool's record at Anfield. Now they lost 1 game this season. Chelsea will be looking at that and thinking, maybe we could get a really good result at Anfield. Liverpool are not completely invincible at Anfield. They can be got at, right? They are not impenetrable. So they've lost one game to Nottingham Forest, Liverpool at Anfield. They've scored 13 goals and conceded only two. They've got the best defense so far this season and goal difference of plus 11 with 18 points. Liverpool have won their last three matches since losing to Nottingham Forest. So I think they've done really, really well for themselves. They sit at the top of the table, number one, and it's been a great start to life in England for Arne Slot, new coach, of course, replacing Jurgen Klopp, right? And as for Chelsea, they've played seven, they've won four, drawn two, they've lost one, they've scored 16 goals and conceded eight, giving them a positive 8 goal difference. And I think they've played really well this season. As I mentioned earlier, they played against Manchester City in the first game and they lost that game 2-0 at home at Stamford Bridge. And as I said, it wasn't very close. It wasn't very close. Manchester City were just so many levels above Chelsea. They showed it, they flexed their muscles. They went there. They didn't really have to go into, sixth gear, seventh gear to really beat Chelsea that day. They only had to play well. They had to control the game. They had to score goals, 2 goals, Kovacic and Haaland, enough for Manchester City. And since then, I think Chelsea have looked really, really strong. And after the Manchester City game, they played Wolves and they scored 6 and conceded 2. So they won 6-2 away from home. Now, I think that was impressive to look at, right, when it happened. But looking at Wolves, they are the worst team in the Premier League this season. They're bottom. They haven't won a game. They've conceded 21 goals. And they've had an atrocious start to the season. So looking back, maybe not that big a problem for Chelsea to deal with because Wolves have just not been good this season, right? But they've done well for themselves, Chelsea, to get back into this. And, they sit fourth. And I think they are looking good to challenge for top four honours. Maybe the league? I don't know. I think not the league. I don't think they'll challenge. I think that there are teams that are still better than Chelsea. Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool are better than Chelsea. So I think not yet to challenge for the league, but definitely for top four for the first time in a few years. And they've had really good results. They've scored so many goals. They scored 3 against West Ham at the London Stadium. Or was it the Olympic Stadium? And they scored 4 against Brighton a few weeks ago, or rather, should I say, Cole Palmer scored 4 goals against Brighton. He had that incredible performance where he scored 4 goals in the first half of the match. So I think this is going to be a really good game. And those are the records. I just wanted to look at the records first. Look at how both teams have played so far this season. And I think they've done really, really well for themselves because they've had a lot of changes in their teams, right? And I think because of the changes that have happened at both clubs, that could easily disturb both teams. That could easily come with, a lot of I'm not going to say negative changes, but it can come with a lot of new changes that the players have to grasp onto, that the coaches have to get used to, the ownership of both teams. But I think both clubs have done really, really well with a shift change. Let's look at some of the changes that have happened. Let's start with Liverpool. They've obviously had a new coach after the Klopp era, which was very successful, I think, for Liverpool. For Liverpool, in this time where this time is dominated by Real Madrid and Manchester City. They won a Champions League in between that, and they won a Premier League under Klopp. They've won a few leagues, cup trophies as well. So that's fantastic for Liverpool. I think that was a success. I remember watching an interview by Jurgen Klopp, and he was saying that, and he said, I spoke to the players and I said, you guys are awesome. You guys are great players. But what are you going to be remembered for? Are you going to be remembered for just being great players or winning players? You want to be, seen as a great centre back like Van Dijk, but also having won trophies. You have pelts on the wall, so to say, to prove your greatness, right? So I think that was a huge change for Liverpool, to move from Klopp, a very successful manager at Liverpool, and now you have Arne Slot. And I think there are very clear differences where Klopp used to play, as they say, metal kind of football, a rock and roll football, where the team is just flying. They press high, they move the ball quickly, and they just rip you to shreds very early on in the game. To very a different Jurgen Klopp's system was very impressive Gegen press, which is very popular in Germany. And I think he did well to implement that. Now Liverpool had to switch because Arne Slot plays a little differently. He wants to control the game a little more. He wants to control possession much more than you know the previous time at Liverpool, and so he wants to emphasize the control in midfield where he has that box, and it's very difficult to get the ball and to disturb that box that Liverpool have. And they have key players to play that system for Liverpool, where they have Gravenberch and Alexis McAllister, both not, I can't say they are offensive midfielders or they are defensive midfielders. They don't specialize in one very particular thing. I think Alexis McAllister is more offensive than Gravenberch, but Gravenberch has been really good on the ball, and he's proven himself to be a really good defensive midfielder for Liverpool. So you have both those guys sitting right at the base of midfield, creating that box where they have a lot of control of the game, of the flow, of the tempo, of ball possession, right? And so I think it's a really awesome system to put in place for that kind of Liverpool midfield where they don't have a particular number 10, a player that is going to just be offensive and create goals and thread passes, score goals for his teammates. All right? And I think also this is something that Liverpool haven't had for a long time. Since they had Coutinho, who was the number 10, they've changed that, and I think they haven't had a proper number 10 in a very long time. So the system that's in place at Liverpool now plays well. And then, of course, you have your fullbacks, Trent and Andy Robertson, bombing forward, creating goals, creating goals, wicked crosses into the box, venomous, hard to deal with. It's a nightmare for centre backs and defenders. So I think that's been a very good transition from that system for Liverpool to what they are doing right now. They've been a really good team in the Premier League this season. They sit at the top, and so that's been fantastic for Liverpool. There have been a lack of changes as well for Liverpool, because even though they have a new coach, they haven't brought any new players. They didn't sign anyone new. They have the same team from last season, basically, right? Which I think is still a really, really good team. And you have players. I think if you, I was saying this, right? about Liverpool and the players they have, and maybe that's why they didn't want to sign anyone. You have Arsenal, who are extremely great defensively, probably the best defensive team in Europe, not just in England, right? But and Arsenal have a good midfield, but not particularly great offensively. Manchester City are awesome, awesome offensively. They have players like Haaland, De Bruyne, Foden, Bernardo Silva. Now they've added excitement with Savinho, right? And they have an awesome midfield as well, great midfield. But I think defensively, not as good as Liverpool or Arsenal. And then you have Liverpool, who I think have a balance in all stages or all positions of the field. Well, if you want to add goalkeeping as well, they have a fantastic goalkeeper who is injured for the next 6 or 5 weeks. Huge blow for Liverpool, but they have a great goalkeeper. They have a good defense. They have a good midfield and a good attack. So they have a good balance, and maybe that's why they didn't need to, go out there and sign new players. I think the coaching change at Liverpool is the one huge one as well to add to that. So that was Liverpool. Now I want to focus on the changes at Chelsea. Of course, Chelsea had Mauricio Pochettino last season, but this season they have Enzo Maresca, who was one of Pep's assistants in previous years, even at Manchester City. So he's one of the managers that have come through, that have worked with Pep Guardiola, right? You have a lot of managers right now who have worked under Pep Guardiola or with Pep Guardiola in their time. Eric Ten Hag, you have obviously Mikel Arteta. Now you have Enzo Maresca, who are doing really well. And no matter what you want to say about Eric Ten Hag, he has won trophies at Ajax. He has won trophies for Manchester United. Now he's not in a very good position. All right, Mikel Arteta is one of the best managers going right now. He's won an FA Cup for Arsenal in his first season. And I think his ambition is really awesome. And then you have Enzo Maresca, who took Leicester City from the Championship back to the Premier League. So Enzo Maresca is a really good coach. His playing philosophy is very, very... I think his playing style is quite close to Pep as well. You could argue maybe a little closer to Pep. Like, you could argue that Enzo Maresca's playing style is closer to Pep than Mikel Arteta is to Pep's style, right? You could argue that, maybe. I don't know. And another manager I forgot to mention that's worked with Pep, not as an assistant, but as a player, Xabi Alonso. So that's another one that's doing really well as a manager. But anyway, Enzo Maresca's playing style is one of ball control, but they also want to have lots of pace out wide, and they hurt you in the transition. Same as Liverpool, actually. Slightly going back to Liverpool, as I said, Liverpool have that box in midfield where they want to have control, but as soon as they get the ball, they want to move it forward really quickly to the offensive players. Salah, Diogo Jota, Luis Diaz, right? Same as Liverpool. Same as Chelsea, who have exciting wingers like Madueke and Jadon Sancho, who's come alive, who's done really well. They want to move it forward to their striker, Jackson, who has lots of pace and is great physically. He's done really well to play excellently this season. And if you look at last season's numbers, Jackson wasn't that bad, but this season it looks like he has improved even more. And then you have Cole Palmer, of course, controlling everything for Chelsea. They play a 4-3-3. That's very traditional at Chelsea. Very good system for them. They like to play that system, which is awesome, right? And I think that they are still learning how to play the Enzo Maresca system and how to do well. simply because you still see them concede many goals and still trying to figure out. So they still sometimes struggle against teams that you think they would beat, like Nottingham Forest lost their last game. They drew 1-1, which they should have won, right? So those are the kind of games where you feel like they're still kind of finding their feet, where I think Liverpool are playing slightly better than Chelsea right now. Mm, of course, you have lots of attacking talent for Chelsea. I think maybe it's not even close, but Chelsea offensively have the best talent in terms of like those forward wingers. They have so many, options at Chelsea right now. They have Jadon Sancho, Madueke, Pedro Neto, who's playing really well. They still have Mikhailo Mudryk, and I know he's not playing really well, but he is an option. You even have Cole Palmer. I think Cole Palmer, if needed, can move on either wing, probably more to the left, to the right side of the attack than the left side. But you do have a lot of attacking talent at Chelsea, especially on the wingers. So I think they're still finding a balance. Defensively, they still look shaky, as I said. But from both teams and the changes that they've made, especially on a coaching level, they seem to have had positive results really early on, with Arne Slot's system, being nice for Liverpool, and Enzo Maresca's system looking good and exciting for Chelsea as well. And I think that's been the start for both teams, which is really great. Nice for both teams with the big changes that they've had in the offseason. Now I want to talk about the last game that both teams played at Anfield. If you remember that game, sorry about that. But if you remember that game, Liverpool won 4-1, an absolutely dominant win. It was right in the middle of the season, right in the middle of last season, when Liverpool was still in four big competitions: the Champions League. They had already won the League Cup. They were still in the FA Cup and the Premier League. They were still challenging City and Arsenal for the Premier League. And I think, if I remember correctly, at that point, Liverpool were on top of the table, if I'm not mistaken, because I remember around that time, maybe a little bit later, maybe in March. This game was in February, the 4-1. But in March, my friend said Liverpool will not lose a game from now until the end of the season. I kid you not. After he said that, Liverpool had one of their worst runs. I think in April they won 3 games. They lost 4. They drew a few games. They were knocked out of the FA Cup by Manchester United 4-3. They were knocked out of the Champions League as well. They were out of the Premier League race effectively. And that was that for Klopp. A nice little goodbye with the Carling Cup. Bye-bye, Klopp. See you later. And that's what they got. But that was the curse my friend bestowed upon Liverpool. Thank you very much for that one. So that was the game, the last game at Anfield between Liverpool and Chelsea. Liverpool won 4-1. If you remember, also, Connor Bradley scored against Chelsea, and I think he was the youngest player to assist two other goals. So he scored a goal and had 2 assists in that game. Amazing he was 20. He's still 20, I think, or maybe 21. But he was 20 years old at the time. It was earlier on this year. Big win for Liverpool at that point. And I wanted to look at the last 5 fixtures. So the last 5 fixtures from this particular fixture, or not this particular, but these 2 teams. So the last time at Anfield, Liverpool won 4-1. At Stamford Bridge, it was a 1-1 draw. And again, another game At Stamford Bridge, it was 0-0 between both teams. At Anfield, it was another nil all. And the fifth game was Chelsea 2, Liverpool 2. Now, let's look at um, the games that both teams have played at Anfield, the last 5 games at Anfield, specifically this fixture, right, at Anfield. Liverpool won 4-1. We spoke about that. It was a 0-all draw, a 1-all draw, and Chelsea have actually won. Let me see this. I was looking at this a bit earlier. Yeah, so it was a 4-1 win for Liverpool at Anfield in 2024. In 2023, it was a 0-all draw. In 2022, it was a 1-all draw. And in 2021, this was 3 years ago, Chelsea won by a goal, 1-0 at Anfield. So I think in the last game, that was in 2020, Liverpool won 5-3 against Chelsea. So if you look at that, right, of course it's at Anfield. It's a very difficult game for any team. But if you look at the record at Anfield for Chelsea, it's not that far apart. So in the last 5 games, Liverpool have won 2 games and Chelsea have won one with a draw, with 2 draws in between. Yeah. So 2 wins for Liverpool, 1 win for Chelsea at Anfield. This is at Anfield with 2 draws. And the record is 2-1, with Liverpool scoring 11 goals and Chelsea scoring 7 goals. Both teams are big, and I don't think, maybe this iteration of Chelsea might be a new experience, and they might need to be a little stronger. It'll take them a few more games, a few more trips to Anfield to really get used to that. But I think they won't be too phased or flustered by Anfield, I think. And I think it's going to be a closer game than many people make it out to be. Of course, Liverpool are favourites, but I think it's going to be a close game. I think Chelsea are going to make a really good fight of it. And I think because both teams come into this in good form, like Liverpool look good, Chelsea look good. So it's there's not much to separate between both teams, really. So in my opinion, I think it's going to be a draw. I think that's the result that I really see. And Arne Slot said it himself. He said this is he said Liverpool haven't really played a really tough opponent. Even considering Manchester United and how big they are, Liverpool won 3-0 at Old Trafford. But if you look at Liverpool and their season so far, they haven't played any team in the top 10. All the teams they've played, well, Nottingham Forest are number 10, right? So, but that's the only team that they've played, and they lost that game, right? So all the other teams that they've played, they have all those teams are below 10th. I was looking at this. They've played Ipswich, Brentford, Man United, Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth, Wolves, and Crystal Palace. Only Nottingham Forest sit at 10th and they lost. All the other teams are below Liverpool or below 10th. Wolves, the worst team in the league. So this is the first real test for Liverpool in Arne Slot. The first time they've come up against a good team in good form as well this season. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think it's going to be an entertaining game. I think it's going to be a 2-all draw. And we'll see how strong defensively that Liverpool backline is against a very exciting Chelsea attack with Cole Palmer. I think some of the things that you have to look forward to in the game, Cole Palmer, I think as right now, this season, the best player in the Premier League, you have to look at the matchup that he will have against Gravenberch, who has been one of the best players in the league as well, Gravenberch, right? And he's going to be in the six, going head to head with Cole Palmer. That's going to be an interesting battle, I think. And also, you have Sancho and Trent. Sancho seems to have been playing much better. He looks happier than he looked like at Manchester United. Trent is showing that he's such a transcendent talent. Um, he can play any kind of pass for a defender. He has the pass of a midfielder. I'm not saying he should play in midfield, but he's going to be, such a talent moving forward in many years to come as well. So that's going to be an interesting battle. Sancho versus Trent. I think the most interesting one that I look forward to is Palmer versus Gravenberch. Two, I think this season you could argue both have been top 10 players. Certainly not arguable for Cole Palmer. I think he's been the best player this season. But Gravenberch, you could say he's been a top 10 player this season, just this season. And so that's something to look forward to in the game. But yeah, it's going to be a very nice game, very exciting game. I'm going to watch it. And let's see what happens between both these two big teams. So there you have it. That was my review. That was my preview of the Liverpool versus Chelsea game. Please let me know what you think. Remember to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel at We Talk Football 24, and follow us on Instagram at We Talk Football 24. Also on Facebook at We Talk Football. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. It helps us out a lot. We want to grow. We love talking about football. We love football. So thank you very much. And I'll see you again next time. Awareness.